Your mom's is so poor. She went to McDonald's to put a shake on layaway.
Go through all
Your
this
mother's so old, she knew Central Park was just a plant. Your mom's hair so nappy, she gotta take painkillers to comb my hair.
shit. Yeah, because this is what I fucking talking to him.
You got what I did. Oh, it's over that, baby. How about you? Come back. Yo. Forget them girls, man. What's up? Yo, I got a little story to tell you. Have you ever met a girl that you tried to date, but a year to make love, she wanted you to wait? Let me tell you a story of my situation. I was talking to this girl from the U.S. nation. The way that I met her was on tour at a concert. She had long hair and a short miniskirt. I just got on stage dripping, pouring with sweat. I was walking through the crowd, and guess who I met? I whispered in the air, come to the picture booth so I can ask you some questions to see if you're 100 proof. I asked her name, she said blah, blah, blah. She had 9, 10 pants and a very big bra. I took a couple of flicks and she was confused. I said, how do you like the show? She said I was very amused. I started throwing bass, she started throwing back mid-range. But when I sprung the question, she acted kind of strange. Then when I asked, do you have a man? She tried to pretend. She said, no, I don't. I only have a friend. Come on. I'm not even going for it. It's my Lord saying.
Got what I need. But you say I'm just a friend. You said he's just a friend. Oh, baby. Got what I need.
So I took my word for it. At this time, I thought just having a friend couldn't be no crime. Cause I have friends, and that's a fact, like Agnes, Agatha, Jermaine, and Jack. Forget about that, let's go into the story about a girl named blah 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 that adore me. So we started talking, getting familiar, spending a lot of time so we can build a relationship or some understanding how it's gonna be in the future. We was planning. Everything sounded so dandy and sweet. I had no idea I was in for a treat. After this was established, everything was cool. The tour was over and she went back to school. I called every day to see how she was doing. Every time that I called her, it seemed to overdo it. I called her room, I got picked up, and then I called again. I said, yo, who is that? Oh, he's just a
But you say
friend.
he's just a friend.
Give me that.
You say he's just a friend. Oh, baby, you got what I need. But you say he's just a friend. Oh, baby, you got what I need.
So I came to a college on a surprise visit to see my girl that was so exquisite. It was a smart day. I know she was there the first semester of the school year. I went to a game that had
We're about to try to skip those. Boom, skipped it. Fuck yeah. You gave me one song.
cry. I apologize a trillion times. Listen to the way you treat me. Look at the way you treat me. Still a no homegirl, you got that's enough to drink tea. Without a pad on, you left the traveling right, this ain't home now. And the union girl ain't speaking no more, cause my and I'm out. I'm talking about jealousy, infidelity, can be cheating, and be cheating, and the N to the G, they mean the same thing. But when you place in the play mode, you keep on singing that same song. And back home, be back home, you can go and get the hell on you and your mom. I'm sorry, Miss Jackson. I am for real. Never meant to make your daughter cry. I apologize a trillion times. I'm sorry, Miss Jackson. I am for real. Never meant to make your daughter cry. I apologize a trillion times. I'm sorry, Miss Jackson. I am for real. Never meant to make your daughter cry. I apologize a trillion times. I'm sorry, Miss Jackson.
Things come up in conversations, you always say, oh, I read something about that. Well, guess what, guys? Nobody reads. But you know what? Your buddy over at Jason channel, Jason right here, has actually been doing some reading lately. He's been reading up on some things, and he's kind of interested in gaming development, gaming behind the scenes kind of stuff. And there's actually a lot of cool information that I've been looking into. So what I want to do is kind of sit down here with a completely uneducated mind when it comes to this on how video games are created and like the steps taken towards making a video game. I'm not going to sit here and talk to you about how code works or the finance behind what you need to do with gaming. What I'm here to do is kind of just do a dumbed down version of what people do when they want to make a game for the first time. These first time developers, these indie developers, the thought process behind the pattern of what you need to do. And it's actually kind of interesting and kind of helpful for anybody that's looking into this. So I hope that you're interested in this, guys. Let's get right into the video, guys. The first thing that you need to do is, of course, you need to come up with a story. If it's simple, if it's difficult, you can have a story as simple as Unravel. You can have a story as complicated as the Assassin's Creed series, but you need to come up with a thesis, a story of what you really want the games to be about. That is the first step in everything. So like that aha moment, you're walking into Walmart to buy Ben and Jerry's ice cream because you decided that you're going to be sad today, and you think, oh, haha, the game that can roll around as bread and try to get to a toaster without getting filthy. That's a game. Somebody thought about it. Millionaire. But yes, you can see how easy it can be and also how difficult it can be if you're trying to get more of an in-depth game compared to a more simplistic game. Next is to think about what kind of art style you want the game to be. There's a lot of different types out there, and right now there's actually a real big push for pixel art games. And pixel art games is something that I really enjoy when I play them, at least. And they're cheaper usually, and the actual art style behind them is a little bit more thought out than a lot of these other games. A lot of these other games run on these crazy engines where everything is already kind of written for them. All of these games look the same with certain types of people. But pixel art kind of brings it back to a more simplistic time, and it's cool. I really like the art style of pixel art. But then there's art styles like No Man's Sky, and there's art styles like GTA, and there's art styles like Unravel. It's all up to you which one the art styles you. But come up with an art style, and then that is something that you can kind of push forward your story as well. Next, what you really need to do is wonder about software. You need software, good software to create a game. Or you can take your idea to someplace big. You can take pixel art games is something that I really enjoy when I play them at least. And they're cheaper usually and big. That's a game. Somebody thought about it. Millionaire. But yes, you can see how easy it can be and also how difficult it can be if you're trying to get more of an in-depth game compared to a more simplistic game. Next is to think about what kind of art style you want the game to be. There's a lot of different types out there, and right now there's actually a real big push for pixel art games. And pixel art games is something that I really enjoy when I play them at least. And they're cheaper usually, and the actual art style behind them is a little bit more thought out than a lot of these other games. A lot of these other games run on these crazy engines where everything is already kind of written for them. All of these games look the same with certain types of people. Like
dragons left. Suit up, gang. You going to beat me to a battle? I would do that if I were you. We have to protect the hidden world. Show them what you got, bud. Gotta love that dragon. Pretty peachy.
Now, here's a little story I got to tell about three best brothers you know so well. Story with that rock that made me much. Had a little horsey named Paul Revere. You see in my horsey in a court of steel. Right from the land, chicken of adventure. So I know I'm in demand. One lone TCCIP. All of the ghost stars know but me. The sun is beating down on my baseball hat. The heavens getting hot, the river getting flat. Looking for a girl, I'm looking for a guy. Living this shit at the house, he said hi.
Pixel art kind of brings it back to a more simplistic time, and it's cool. I really like the art style of pixel art. But then there's art styles like No Man's Sky, and there's art styles like GTA, and there's art styles like Unravel. It's all up to you which one the art styles do. But come up with an art style, and then that's something that you can kind of push towards your story as well. Next, what you really need to do is wonder about software. You need software, good software, to create a game. Or you can take your idea to someplace big. You can take it to like Ubisoft, or you can take it to Rockstar, but you have to make a pitch that way. If you want to pitch it to them, again, they're probably hearing 1,000 different pitches a day, but if you don't have the brain or the money to actually develop the game yourself, go pitch it to one of these bigger developers. But the thing about that is you need to have some sort of concept art behind it. You need to actually have some sort of art to show. Maybe you can make it in Photoshop, maybe you can just draw it up, but give them something to look at on a board. Give them something to kind of immerse themselves into your brain on what you think this game is going to be like. Because if you just show up and say, I want to make a game where you're a piece of bread and you have to get to a toaster without getting extremely dirty, they're going to be like, you're freaking nuts. But if you draw a piece of toast, get into a toaster, it might get them a little bit more excited, you know what I mean? Also, again, you can get the software yourself and learn how to do it. But there's another thing with making it yourself, and that is code. You don't have to use code in a lot of the software that people give you, but this is the kind of thing where, if you're not really familiar with it, is there's these game making software bundle kind of things, and you can go and you can make a game, but you need to understand that there's 1,000 other people that have made a game with that software as well. So a lot of these games will start to look the same. A lot of these games will kind of start repeating themselves because there's only so many real ideas you can do with predetermined software. We're not predetermined, yeah, like pre-written software, and you can't really run it with that much. Whereas if you can learn code, which is kind of completely make it up your own engine, basically, you can make a game
Dude had a
whatever you
original
want. For
idea
example,
or
if
something
game
that
software says there's these 5 cars, these 5 different cars that you can choose from in this game that can drive really fast.
talent for that
You can only choose between those 5, or you can choose all 5. But again, there's other people out there that choose all 5 as well. Whereas if you have information in code, if you have knowledge in code, you can make 1,000 cars, and you can make them go as fast as you want. That's the difference between that. It's kind of like Squarespace, if you're not aware with it. Squarespace is a website developer where everything's already pre-made, but you can also write code in it to make it a little bit more interesting. So code's kind
so
of
specifically when you do it.
after learning code, which is kind of making up your own engine basically. You can make a game whatever you want. For example, if a game software says there's these 5 cars, these 5 different cars that you can choose from in this game that can drive really fast, you can only choose between those 5. You can choose all 5, but you can choose other people out there that choose all 5 as well. Whereas if you have information in code, if you have knowledge in code, you can make 1,000 cars and you can make them go as fast as you want. That's the difference between it's kind of like Squarespace if you're not aware of it. Squarespace is a website developer where everything is already pre-made, also write code in which we can live with code. So code's kind of just making it more personal. For example, after all of this is done, you got this. Or you got this check for some $26 billion, and you got a game that they made for you. Those are kind of the two stories that I've been reading up on. How games actually succeeded. I'm kind of interested in this as well. It's not something that I really want to do probably, but it's kind of just interesting. I hope that it's kind of interesting for you guys. I'm not trying to try to like push this knowledge on you that I really don't know too much about. I'm just kind of interested in this that I've been studying on lately. And I hope like that's the things that like really does help me out, guys.
First animal. Sure, buddy.
One of the exciting things about history class is that I have a skill and a story that I can share, and that you help me in it. Plus a writer, English as a second language, but
While we blame the latest 3D shooters and take the internet for granted, it's easy to forget the road that we took to get here. Please, allow me to share with you my journey, what got me into video games, but more importantly, what got me making them. I've always wanted to make my very own computer games. I mean, who hasn't? Who could their game that they love not feel at least a pinch of inspiration to make their own? This series covers the games that I have made, the failures that I've encountered, and the important game design discoveries that I have learned. I didn't have a PC for years. My parents said that I would get bored of it and that it was just a fad, so I decided on paper instead. These were called paper games, where you chose your path for a drawn environment, sort of like a point-and-click game. I remember that I would sell them to people in class at school in exchange for pencil leads. My friend, Tom TTK, joined in, and together we amassed big wells full of pencil leads that I would excite with my finger in class. But it backfired after a teacher caught somebody intentionally snapping pencils to save it for my latest and greatest creation. We had to stop. The world just wasn't ready for those paper games, and we were justly punished for setting up business before we could tech. My dad, however, let me have his old Atari ST. It was half a better run. And yes, he used it in conjunction with Cubase to write his music back in the 80s. I'll never forget that lovely warm plastic smell, or how the entire device fitted into the keyboard. PC was bulky in comparison. We got ours just as everybody else was getting rid of theirs, which made it very cheap. I have thousands of floppy disks, complete with games, programs, viruses, and the midway ones, who had their own disks, but they somehow fit several full games into a 900 kilobyte floppy disk. I suspect it also contained a virus, since every disk you put in afterwards would get a multicolored flickering effect, while text on the screen would read that you don't have a virus. There's nothing to steal your bank details, is it? One of the first things I was introduced to was ProText, the Atari's writing software. I was a very slow typist at the time, but I entered a competition where I had to write a 2,000-word story. I chose for it to be an adventure about pirates, and lots of people died. I slaved away for weeks writing it. It was one of the longest and hardest things that I had ever done. I remember printing it out countless times, highlighting what needed to be changed and returning to the drawing board several times. Instead of editor, the Atari had a return key in the same place. I used to love the return button. I used it instead of the numpad enter button as much as I could. Finally, just before the deadline, I sent it off, but never heard back from the judge. On the plus side, I noticed that I could now type a lot faster. It was no longer a chore, and I had learned the QWERTY keyboard. I didn't ever write a story again with the program though, but the typing practices helped me ever since. Those 2,000 words with such a commitment that I still remember.
Keep me between
This video, by comparison, has
my string cheese.
Next game I played, they introduced me to the Atari's desktop. The machine would let off a bizarre, quiet, high-pitched whine whenever this screen was shown. They let me change between low resolution, 320 by 200, and medium, 640 by 200, which looks as stupid as it sounds. I was told to use medium resolution because it was better, and I messed about with the program and its 4-color palette for a while. It was cool. However, one day I forgot to change it up to that resolution and accidentally boosted it in 320 by 200. Oh no! To my surprise, I found that I had a whole 16 colours to use. I was so excited. Think of the possibilities. This was my first breakthrough discovery with computers, and I spent countless hours drawing rubbishy-looking things and using the textured fills. Betsy recently got me a cool new bed cover, which I wanted because it reminded me of these textured fills available in Hyperpaint. It's such a petty reason that it's almost cool again. I came back to this program again and again. I didn't ever draw pictures, I did experiments. I zoomed in between two pixels to see which connected at the intersection. I pretty much discovered anti-aliasing and did it to simulate higher resolution than the program was capable of. I explored the menus as if they were a place. Options would lead to other option menus. I discovered hidden treasures like the beautiful colour selection screen. Today is the first time in over 50 years that I have seen this incredible display. I don't know how they managed to show more than 16 colours at once. This program still feels mysterious and complicated to me. All of these things I did seem strange and pointless, but there was reason to this madness. When you're using such a limited program,
man.
not creative, you have to. You're not distracted by stuff that other people have done for you, and because of that, it encourages you to approach it from a much more imaginative angle. I can't help but feel that my discoveries in those early days fueled my ambitions later on, and that people growing up in the internet era will miss out on this. You can't make the leap from modern technology
Super
backwards,
Nintendo,
which is why in the unlikely event that I
Mario
ever have children, I'm going to
That was
forbid that they
the
use any
mouse.
modern technology. Every month they'll go through a year from history so that they too can experience the delights of the 80s and 90s. It's anything. Next came Hyperdraw, my mate's lesser-known cousin. I'm afraid that it's all but disappeared from the world, unless you fancy buying it on eBay, but it had one big advantage over Hyperpaint. It memorized everything that you drew and in the order that you did it. After you had finished the drawing, you'd press a button and it would draw it again step by step. This blew my mind. What would you have done with this? I made a roller coaster ride, drawn from the rider's point of view as it goes on the lift hill, before filling the sky with a ground colour and spending hours drawing upcoming parts of the track, including hills, loops, and pits of lava. There was another bit of software that had an even more profound effect on me. STOS Basic, the game maker, complete with black screen, white text, and unforgiving commands. It also had a badass, mega thick and musty manual that I would consult regularly, and I needed to. I forgot how infuriating this program was until I tried it today. You simply can't get a foothold. Things seemingly don't work without reason, and unlike a basic game-making program, this one rubs it in by promising so much. I forgot how exciting it was for a command not to be given the old syntax error response. Enter something incorrectly or at the wrong time? Sorry, have to swear one. STOS Basic is like the girl who ignores you until you're about to lose interest, only for her to then throw a tidbit of hope in your direction to keep you enticed. The manual makes it sound like it's the easiest thing in the world, and that all of the cool kids are out there making the next big thing on it, whilst you're stuck at square one on a black screen full of syntax errors. You know when you're trying to teach somebody who's computer illiterate to use Google? I imagine that's how the manual feels about me. I'm stupid. I'm impatient. I'm not worthy. I've tried. Oh, how I tried to make a game with it. However, I never got anywhere. It did, however, have a marvellous sprite editor, and I used this to make what I can only describe as computerized paper games. I remember the roller coasters, tomb raiding games, and animations that I drew on this basic software. It had professional-looking sprites that I could load up and edit. I even learned how to draw walking animations. You're going to have to believe me about all this, because I can't for the life of me get this screen to work to show you for this video. I struggled back in the day. I remember having dreams about loading it up and making amazing artwork. But yeah, STOS Basic didn't teach me how to make games. It taught me the basics of pixel art, something that would put me in good stead for the years to come. Somewhere I have hundreds of floppy disks filled with the animations that I created using it. There was also an inbuilt music editor, but it was rubbish. I became proficient at the 2-disc floppy hold that enabled you to quick switch. It's a skill that every Atari user had to master, but perhaps the most important thing that STOS Basic taught me was that I was impatient, that my stupid little self needed instant gratification, and I suspect that it's this that has caused me to avoid coding ever since. It's just that at the time, I stuck with it because I didn't know there was another way of doing what I wanted. All those hours sat in front of that black screen was like sitting outside an amazing party, hoping that one day they'd change their mind and let you in. There's nothing on the PC that can fill you with this level of despair. There are excellent tutorials on everything you could want to do, and if a program's rubbish, don't worry, there are plenty more just begging you to use them instead. With the Atari, you didn't have the luxury. I rarely finished anything. I left a trail of half-finished drawings and games in my wake. I'd start again, time after time, promising that this time it would be the best thing ever. Not that any of this matters now, but in a dark recess of my mind, I remember these half-finished animations and adventures just begging to be completed one day. The excitement I experienced when I drew the first frame, imagining how this would bring people back to the Atari again. I feel nostalgic about it to this day, and will never forget them. Would my life have been any different if I had finished that rollercoaster journey? How about that electronic paper game point-and-click adventure that was inspired by a Final Fantasy game that I saw at a friend's house? Of course not. But it's as though my time spent on the Atari was thoroughly wasted because I didn't invest those few extra hours of effort. You know the feeling. Your project doesn't feel quite right. It's not like you had intended. but it definitely would if you were to start again. The problem is that finishing isn't like the end of a race. Nobody will come along and tell you that you've done it. The program won't flash up and congratulate you. Heck, you know when you watch movies, games, and music and can't imagine it being any other way? I guarantee you that the developers see it differently, like a half-finished project that they could have improved in so many ways. The exception to this is games like Rome 2 Total War, which are evident to all that they are released half-finished. Making anything is a law of diminishing returns, and because of it, it becomes harder and harder as you approach completion. At some point, you have to throw your arms in the air, wobble your head about like a jelly, and yell that it's done. Yes, you could have made the graphics better or polished out a few more bugs, but it doesn't matter. Your time is best spent on a fresh new project. Proudly compile the project you've been working on, burn it to a disk of its own, and put it proudly on your mantelpiece as a testament to the thousands of hours you've invested on the platform, and move on to bigger and better
You're
ordinance
seeing
things.
eye.
In my last few years of primary school, it got its first computer room. It was always so hot,
It's
cozy,
not
and noisy
physically
in there.
there.
We had a forward-thinking IT teacher, and I have everything to thank him for. I know it was him who installed Click and Play on the servers and had it hidden on the second desktop. I just know it. Click and Play was made by the same people who developed STOS Basic and is, to this day, still the easiest game-making tool ever. But more importantly, I was able to use that Click and Play CD that had been in my possession for years. But more importantly, most people just played the built-in games, but Tommy TTK and myself would use it to make above-view shooter games of our own. I somehow came to possess that Click and Play CD. I don't even know where it came from. Probably from my friend, but I like to think of it as fate. That circular, shiny thing seems so futuristic. The after-school classes were but a taster of its power, but I knew that I needed a PC of my own to be able to make the game of my dreams. And finally, the day came. When I was about to start in secondary school, my parents spoke with the teachers. I remember the topic coming up about these new-fangled computer devices and whether it was worth having one for educational reasons. She said yes, and not long after we got our first PC, a 1600 by 1200 monitor, a Radeon graphics card, 512 megabytes of RAM, and a 1 GHz AMD processor. I kept my Atari for a while, but it was evident that its day had passed. This new PC was a quantum leap. It smelt even hotter and more plasticky than the Atari ever had. But more importantly, I was able to use that Click and Play CD that had been in my possession for years. And once I had, I never looked back. Until now.
Awesome. Oh, wow. Grammarly Business focuses on commas, spelling, and structure.
No. Just gonna upload a voice, I guess.
I use Grammarly every time I type on my computer. It doesn't put small one single character can change sentences whole meaning. Without Grammarly, I don't think I could finish my first book. When I made a connection with people.
Before I dive into my creations on the program, allow me to introduce you to Click and Play, the game development software released in 1994 that changed my life forever. Really, even today I reckon that so many people's lives could have been made better by this program. After an absolutely kick-ass introduction animation sequence, you were greeted with 4 options. The program came with pre-made games that you could play and study. This included Hungry Hedgehogs, a program that combined education with the orgasmic moans of exasperated mammals. There was the most generous slot machine game ever invented. My sister would play it for hours, just clicking on the buttons until she had maxed out her money. Graphilis 5 was a fully working space shooter, by far the best of the games, and even complete with a Hungry Hedgehogs bonus level where you could finally exact justice on those kinky creatures. And then there are others as well. You get the idea. Hours of endless fun and the perfect thing to get you motivated to create your own game. And it wasn't hard to do. You didn't have to know anything about anything to be able to make your own games. You see, instead of coding, you simply run the level and it pops up notifying you when a button is pressed or when something happens. All you have to do is to decide on what it does at those stages. It's so simple, and if it hadn't been, I'm pretty sure I wouldn't have gotten very far with the program. Of course, it has its limitations. You can't, for example, do the same thing twice, so if you miss your opportunity the first time, you have to start making the game all over again. Hence why it was better to learn the much more powerful and flexible event editor, which I eventually did, which is like a large grid where you do pretty much the same thing but at your own pace. But trust me, it gives you the flexibility to do what you want. I just wasn't very good at it back then. Sadly, I no longer have my earliest efforts. They have long since been wiped through countless reformats. They tended to be side view, heavily scripted scenes, sort of like this one. I'm not sure what exactly I was trying to achieve. I'd rarely get past the first cutscene of my game, and when I did, there was seldom any gameplay. And they certainly weren't that fun. but I enjoyed making them and they let me get to grips with the Game Maker. In fact, although I have many fond memories of Click and Play, I eventually upgraded to the Games Factory, since it was clearly Click and Play's fault that I wasn't able to make the next groundbreaking title. Since mid-2002, I've kept a comprehensive archive of everything I've made using it. This is when things get exciting. Now armed with an even more powerful game-making tool, my name on the game-making scene would soon be known. Having spent my life planning the games I was going to make, you'd think that when I could finally make them, that I would have been somewhat prepared. The world simply wouldn't be ready for my unlimited enthusiasm and ambition. Nothing would compare with what I was about to make. What did I choose for my first groundbreaking title? Well, it seemed that I went straight to mercilessly and blatantly ripping off every popular game that I was interested in at the time. The Atari had a game called Rick Dangerous, an unforgiving side platformer. I replied with Ricky Man, complete with incredible voice acting. Max Payne's gritty noir inspired me, so I probably tried to make that as well. The thing traumatized me, so I retaliated with a rubbishy remake in the form of an above-view game. Sorry, Hyperbait, you've met your match. My Metal Gear Solid ripoff, Plastic Cop Floppy, showed real potential, but still had no gameplay. Those system requirements sure were high. In fact, I think that the PC I was using at the time was only slightly better than that in every way. Look at the odds. Wow, it's just as well I was 13 when I made this game. The excessive gore of Soldier of Fortune fascinated me for longer than I'd like to admit, so I ripped that off as well. I was somewhat obsessed with real-time lighting back then. That and shooting pipes and having steam come out. I wonder where I got that idea from. Don't even get me started on ragdoll physics. I played Unreal Tournament 2003 for hours just to chuck my character down the pits to see the next-gen physics in action. I even made my own, but they were always limited and thuggy. The Jedi Knight 2 imitator was perhaps the closest I got to being fun, since it actually had enemies that you could kill. Plus real-time shadows, which of course made it a better game. Definitely. I refined this in a Lord of the Rings ripoff where you had to duel a hardcore orc using a sword, bow and arrow, and an overpowered magic spell. Compared with the other ones, my Final Fantasy knockoff seemed pretty decent, displaying some degree of artistic talent and potential. But alas, I didn't stick with those projects either. Anyway, you get the idea. A lot of unfinished projects. Nothing to show for it other than a poor reflection of the games that inspired me to make my own. I very quickly discovered that trying to make your own version of a game that you like doesn't end well. Back then I blamed my lack of experience and kept trying. Now, I know that if you want to remake a game because you like the original, then it's only ever a poor imitation of the original, which is always a tough act to follow, particularly for a lone 13-year-old armed with Click and Play. Hence why I teamed up with Tom. Tom is my friend. I've known him since before we even started school, and we have a huge amount in common. And we both loved computers. We called ourselves the Three Clicketeers because we wanted room to expand, but we never found a third person. He called himself Tommy TTK, as in Tommy the Three Clicketeers, and I settled on Three Clicks Philip. At first, we made projects separately, but later on we collaborated on some complicated and exciting things. More on those later. Although I was useless at finishing games, some people were much better. The best game made on the Click products was Triumph War, an awesome multiplayer war game where you had to defeat the enemies to progress to the next level. Even to this day, we enjoy booting it up at LAN parties. It's a great way to kill time and is remarkably balanced up until the final level. And, of course, we ripped it off with our own games. Perhaps the first decent game that I made and completed was Doom of the World, which was strangely like Triumph War, only much, much simpler. For the AI, I had a load of invisible objects bouncing around the screen, and when they touched something,